Welcome to the Livecast Conversations with. On this show, my guests and I explore the bumps and triumphs of their journey to extract the gems from their experiences, because success leaves clues, and today we turn those clues into billboards for you. I'm your host, Gene Bernier, founder of Peeled Back, speaker and co-active coach, guiding leaders to ruthlessly pursue a life worth living. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 102 of Conversations with. Today, my guest is Shane Spraggs, CEO of Virtira and co-author of the book, The Power of Remote. He's spent the past 25 years driving successful projects for notable media companies, software startups, and world-known brands such as Disney. Shane's focus on process improvement has generated immense value for Virtira's Fortune 100 clients, and he plays a vital role in developing and implementing cutting-edge systems and strategies that consistently boost the productivity of remote-based teams. Shane and Virtira's executive chair, Cynthia released the book, The Power of Remote, just yesterday on February 7th, all in the favor of helping building high-performing organizations that thrive in the virtual workspace. Shane, my words cannot do you justice, man. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Gene. Pleasure being
here. Very, very welcome, and congratulations on the launch of the book. I know it's been a long time in the coming.
It's been, we counted around 829 days worth of work. We started in September 20th of 2020. And
wow.
It just was a long meandering project with lots of ins and outs.
Are you glad now that you get to see the end of that after all that time?
It's amazing to have it in your hands and to see it live, and now we get to see how it does. I only hope I don't see it in the bargain bin in 2 months' time, but early results show that it looks like it's going to do pretty good.
It's incredible, and the book is definitely something that if you're a leader running any size of teams, virtually or even in office, there's a lot of power to be taken out of this. Just definitely go check out those Amazon reviews by me and a number of others who've already had a look at this and seen some immense value in it. So definitely go check that book out, The Power of Remote, available on Amazon. Link down below. All right, now that the ad's over. So Shane, share with the audience a little bit about your journey from, where did it all start and to where you are today as the CEO of Virtira?
Well, it all started failing chemistry at UBC.
Oh, do tell.
Years and years ago. So that was the catalyst that got me on the path I am today. And there's lots of little things along the way, but I was at UBC back in '91 taking computer sciences, and I think it still is, but at the time it was a science. So I had come from I had done a lot of my own personal use of computers, and get to school. I'm not interested at all in anything other than computers. And lo and behold, I had to go through first year sciences. I had to pick between biology, physics, and chemistry. And I guess I shouldn't have picked chemistry.
But I or failed maybe out of you it. Should have.
I failed out of it, and I had an uncle in Vernon who got me into a new school called Okanagan University College here in Kelowna. That got me into the Okanagan Valley, and another year there, just kind of trying to find myself, and ended up with the 2-year degree, diploma for computer information systems. Which, from there, I got a job right out of school, and then I met a couple people there who we kicked off a web development company business, which you know very well, Acro Media. Worked there for 12 years. We had a lot of success, and then we were celebrating our 10th anniversary in 2008, around October. Those of you who know your history know exactly what happened around that time of the year. Housing market crashed. All the banks failed, and we lost about 70% of our clients over the course of a weekend, and we had to slowly reduce the size of the company, and then yeah, really, we got back in order or whatnot, but I didn't really feel like I really, wanted to keep doing that for, build it back up. I went back. I was doing software development. I should have said that, but I was, and I had to go back into doing software development, and I took my PMP, which is another one of those life changing things. I'm not sure if you know what that is, but project management professional. Um, and in 2009, and then I in 2010 I got a job at Disney, which was fantastic, and that was one of the difficult but highlights of my career there for 4.5 years. So, and then from Disney, hit a series of local startups, Fresh Grade, Minga, TVOn, uh, Comic Stream. A lot of experience starting up new teams and getting things, understanding how things work, and learning the hard way about a startup. And then just as the pandemic hit, I joined Virtira, uh, just as the operations manager, and then throughout the time here, Cynthia, she really was looking to step back. She's been running Virtira for a number of years, and so over time, I worked my way up into the COO position last year, and then just recently this summer, CEO. She's still very much involved, but she doesn't want to take on the daily rigor of things, and just wants to take she wants to share her experience as a remote leader. She's been
Right.
doing remote work for uh, all our career, and certainly the last 15 years, Virtira has been running it as a remote company. And yeah, so she's going to go do that thought leadership stuff, and we've launched in day and date with the Power of Remote a service called Virtira Academy, where we're going to provide on demand as well as live training for people to get better at remote services and how to run a remote company.
That's awesome.
And yeah, so now we're here.
That's
And
a
I have a family as well. So the non-professional side, I've got two lovely kids and a wife and two cats, which reside with me here in Kelowna.
in beautiful British Columbia,
Yeah,
Kelowna. Great place to call home.
good place to be remote.
Yeah.
Not remote, but be able to work from home, because I mean I say it to many people: if you have to work somewhere, might as well be here.
Mm. Tell us a little bit more about that. Like, what does it mean to work here, but yet still have a team that's spread all over Canada?
Well, having a team all over Canada is interesting. There are people on our team I haven't met in person, and we don't get together as a team. It's too cost prohibitive. We have done, we do get together as a leadership team occasionally. We just did this recently in September of last year for our year end. And I will see the occasional person at conferences or certain, for some reasons we get together for a meeting or whatnot. But generally we don't really see each other. Um, so we have to. It takes a bit of a different approach to culture to be able to create a company that people want to work for.
Right.
And
Well, that sounds kind of like two things there, right? Like there's the maybe I'm hearing that differently, but there's like kind of like two things within it. There's the culture of the team, like the day-to-day work, and then the culture of the company that you want to work in. So kind of defining the individuals that then go up and make the whole of that organization. How do you bridge that gap when it's remote? How do you provide the value in connecting on that individual basis, which then helps, I imagine, bring along to build the organization that each of those individuals
right.
contribute to?
Well, let me just first start by having a quick look at how it works as a brick and mortar company. And people what people call culture in a like an office setting is often mislabeled as social, right?
Mm,
People have these small social groups to get that they form, and they like going to work to hang out with the people that they are working with, or to interact with the people they work with. That's not company culture. That's a small group of people. It's a subculture within a culture, and it often helps to erode a company, because those individuals have other conversations about how things should be run, what their intent, what their goals are, what's being done, how things should be done better, and it can be a very negative force for a company. For a company culture to be successful, you need to have you need to have a sense of why the company's in business, what its purpose
Right.
is, and let people join that. Right.
Mm.
So um, for us, it's very key that that gets done during the hiring process. That people know when they're joining Virtira that they're joining this company. So I won't get into the nitty gritty details, but we have a very clear purpose statement and core values that they really talk about work life balance. The the roots of the company is actually from a group of people who used to value their value is the wrong word, but used to get their work done so they could go out and surf. Right? They saw the importance of doing the work well and and quickly, and not wasting time to fit the 40-hour work week, so they can
Right.
they can go out there and get on the and do what they wanted to do most. And that still flows through our company, that we when we hire somebody, one of the things we look for is a healthy outside of life um, values or activities or whatnot. So as you know, for me, it's hiking. I really enjoy going hiking. It's something I work towards every year. A big hike. Last year was the North Coast Trail. The year before that was Rock Wall and a few other. So it's something that I do on a regular basis. I also play music. If work is your life, you don't fit. You don't handle remote work well.
Mm. That's an interesting. That's an interesting perspective. Can you dive a little bit more into like what you've seen as like when that is the right fit, when you have a more fuller life that is you've got some sort of separation between what I do for work and then what I do for life, fun, family, everything else, and those who may be struggling when it's just like very work focused and are struggling in this position of being working remotely.
Um, yeah, well, we've all heard the term burnout. Burnout comes from a number of different sources, but simply when you're spending way too much time doing something, if you don't have something to distract you after hours, and your phone is beeping, and your notifications are going off, and you just have to answer that email, you just have to answer that text, um, you don't get a chance to disconnect. I'm a big believer in the concept of taking a break to recharge. Make sure you have the. I don't think you can be creative on the spot. You need to have an opportunity to get focused, and when you don't have something outside of work to take your mind off of it, then your brain doesn't get a chance to relax and doesn't get a chance to take the steps it needs to repair itself and be prepared for the work the next day. So
Right.
you end up not doing your best work. And it's this whole, this is something that I've followed through my entire career, because back when I was doing software development, it was very clear to me that, if you had a team that ran 60 hours a week, they just weren't delivering even 40 hours worth of work in
Yeah.
that 60 hours. It was just the perception that they were busy that was important. And
I
I'm going
think
to
that's
run
an
a little
important.
bit meandering here a bit, but that
That's
really
all right.
isn't
Keep
important to
meandering.
the individual. That's important to the manager, the person who's observing that work getting done. It's a
Go back and
perception.
listen to that. Everybody is like, it's about the perception and who's observing it and earning. Who are you actually earning that busy badge for?
Yeah. And so we try to focus on value based assignments as opposed to task based assignments. So what I mean
Mm.
by that is that telling someone to dig a ditch is a task based. Go dig this ditch, and when you're done, you stop working. A value based assignment is something along the lines. So, well, we need water to go from here to here. Can you figure that out for us and tell us? Ask us for help if you need it, but tell us when it's done. And so, um, for as best as possible, I try to work. I try to make sure people understand the goals we're trying to accomplish, so that when they are working on something, they understand, they know what the end result is trying to be. And so one of the things you'll see in our book is that you really want to make sure that anything that people are doing in the company, they can connect it back to the purpose of the company, which again strengthens culture. Going to bring it back full circle here, and that's not to say that culture doesn't have any social side of things. There's bits and pieces of social, but you don't need to be everyone's best friend, right?
Right.
You need to know enough about the individual to respect them and trust them. And there's little things we do with that as well to make sure that people get some sense of social connection with people. Great, yeah, absolutely. It's great people meet in person. That really brings it up a notch. But you can get a long ways without that as well.
Right. So, how do you, as CEO and setting that culture for understand that balance and understanding that not everybody has to be best friends because that actually doesn't go into what the culture of the company is. I almost hear it sounds like and part of that culture is like holding is promises the right word or is there more like an agreement that culture is holding together?
Hmm. Agreement, promise. Um, I don't, I don't think I take it for granted. We are constantly asking our staff how things are going. We actually have a survey going right now. We call it the INPS survey, which is the internal Net Promoter Score. Very simply, how would you recommend people recommend our company to someone who's going to work here, and then short statement why. We include our staff. He hesitate to call them staff. Our team members in yearly planning. We do a series of retrospectives where they get an opportunity to tell us what's working, what's not working, and what we should improve. We present those results to the leadership team so they can have insights into what the team is saying. I just finished another round of one-on-ones with everybody in the company, to talk to them. It's a two-way street. We
Right.
I have to do my part to listen to them and make sure that they are getting what they want out of it, and that for me that they are also getting a chance to live the expectations that I'm setting, right? Like
Right.
that this idea of work-life balance, right? Like that you have an opportunity, and we have a surprising number of people have some really incredible things happening outside of work that I respect, and that keeps them full, I guess.
Right. Is there some examples of what that can look like, in the practical sense without like tipping secrets from within in your staff? So like the question is like how does me if I'm sitting there going, "Oh, I have to be in charge of a remote team," and part of what we're trying to bring out is having that outside of work life. How do you balance that and how do you bring that into that conversation so you can hear it and like almost championing it as well because that sounds like that's a big part of the culture with you and your crew.
Yeah, it's really just the question, like what keeps you busy outside of work, and and people who have something outside of work that they like will share it with you.
Yeah.
And they're usually proud of it and have lots to say. There's one that comes to mind that does a lot of charity work. Runs a charity council, and like I was just like, how do you have time for this? This is one of these people who just is always on the go and always busy, but because he's doing different work, it's not the same work, and they actually rejuvenate each other, right?
Mm,
Other people fish, other people do outdoors activities. It's individual for each it's everyone has their approach, but some people it's family and whatnot.
what have you noticed for the people that are embracing that side of the culture more? So the question comes around you mentioned earlier about like creativity and this recharge that's necessary. Do you notice a difference for the inflow of creativity that comes back into the company for those that are living up to that, you know, that harmony of work and life?
um I'm not sure there's a specific yes or no to that. I will say that the team I'm working with is probably one of the most productive teams. I shouldn't say probably, is one of the most productive teams I've ever worked for. And we get a lot done, and everyone's very focused, um, and I believe enjoys the work that they do, um, and does a great job of it. We get really good results from clients telling us all the time that 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 certain people on our team are invaluable, and that they do a great job, and so the anecdotal evidence is there that and it's not it's not so much easy to measure per se, but it's like, yeah,
Right.
you'd notice it if it wasn't there.
Right. It's more like that feeling, like you said. It's not so much you can put a metric on how's everybody feeling, but you can get that sense of be like, oh, they like the work, they're coming in, they're energized, and we know when things are off, so we can detect that a little bit easier, and maybe that's something that gets shared by the whole group then, instead of just a single person too, by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
So with all that, what is it like? You mentioned that you had some practices by that there's like a yearly planning, some quarterly work, and some you'd mentioned, what was it, weekly or regular standing meetings. How do
Yeah.
you what's that secret sauce, if you're all right sharing a little bit about how that's
Well, it's
structured, because that can be a lot different when you're pulling in an in-house team versus a virtual team, to get that together and to create an opportunity for that actual flow that might be different if you were all standing around a physical whiteboard versus a virtual whiteboard.
okay. So there's a couple things there. Certainly on the surface, the having a strong yearly plan and regular check-ins is not new for any business. It's just more critically important for a virtual company or a remote company. A lot of a brick and mortar company can get by with less, because they 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 can, well, for lack of a better, socialize it inside the office, right? When you have somebody working at home who needs to know what's happening, you need to be able to provide that structure to them. So for us, it's I we have a yearly planning session. We've got I can take you into some of the best practices we have for doing that
I love
remotely,
that.
because we've had to do that. And that's actually, there's a bit of an aside. One of the things that was interesting for us is that during the pandemic, we also had to do it remotely as well. This was something we always did in person. There's definitely value in getting together in person for certain
Right.
activities, right? We managed it. We don't think it was necessarily the best one we've done, but we got it through it, and we felt it was decent enough that it served our purpose. And so we can appreciate other companies struggling with that as well. So that was a new experience for us. But the for me, it's about you know uh, working with a team to come up with a set of priorities. There's a lot of different ways of calling these things. Some people call them goals. Some people call them objectives. Other people call them rocks. There's and it's probably one of the most critical things is establish your language up front, because nothing
Right.
derails planning faster when you can't agree on how you're planning. But we settle on the term priority, because I think it's pretty clear. What is this? Well, it's a priority. Okay, well, that's a priority. Where we learned in the last little while is that you got to be careful with the scope of each priority. If you choose a project versus a long-term goal, and they don't, you can't. It's hard to becomes harder to say this one's higher priority than this one, because
Mm.
one might just be a project you have to get done. Yes, it's a higher priority today, but in the long run, what's the higher priority? So we set our priorities for the year. What do we want to have done this year? And I try to keep them to 5, because I think that more than that is hard to deliver on, and less than that is not enough of a challenge for people. So
Right. So it's about
plus
finding
5
that.
gives you an opportunity to spread them nicely within the various parts of the business. Sales, operations, finance, HR. And it gives you a chance for you to give various people some responsibility. So that's the next bit, is we assign an owner to each priority, so someone's responsible for it. And
Mm.
that's key to me, that you can't have anything in the company that doesn't have an owner to it. Someone has to be able to be held accountable to the work that's being done there. And then it's just a matter of reviewing it on a regular basis. And we have two different cadences. We actually, this is again a bit strange, unique to us. So our instead of doing quarters, we do thirds. So it's 4 months, and that's just a factor of our calendar. Our year end is in the end of October. 3 months from October is end of January, and January is just a really crappy time to hold strategic planning.
Right.
Because you're coming back from Christmas and no pre-work's been done, and everyone just wants to get back to work, right? So we push that to February, and as soon as you push that to February, well, it just make sense to do that next one in April, and so just sort of we only do a check-in on the yearly plan twice a year, so in February and again in June, and I've called those sessions recalibration, which I think is another great way to think about what you're trying to do with the purpose of meeting. And so just today we had our first, our recalibration for February, and we started by doing a review of all the priorities, and people had to present. The owners of the priorities had to present what had been done in the last little while and where they were at. And then next week, the leadership team is going to get together and talk about them and go through the process that we have to really evaluate if there's still a priority. And we don't want to change. We don't want to willy-nilly change these things. They should still be defendable, but we want to give the opportunity just to prune it if there's one that's really off track, that's never going to get back on track, and so you can refocus your efforts for the rest of the year. You still have another year, half of year left. You don't want to waste it because of some process told you had to hold on to the 5 you chose at the start of the year. So there's a little bit of common sense, a little bit of practicality in play. And so that's that. We do that. We just review the priorities, and then on the other months, so November, December, January, we are getting together monthly to review how the departments are doing to accomplish those priorities. And so there's another layer below the strategic priorities where the departments have their goals for the third or quarter, which allows them to pick every quarter the 3 or 4 things they're going to do towards those priorities in that quarter. And I like to keep the department goals / priorities short, not for a year, because if they're a year is too long. People need to be able to see what needs to get done and be able to break it down into actionable work. And if you get past a quarter, that's just not possible.
Right.
So there's that, and then.
So there's definitely a cadence and a size, I think scope, but I see this as as a size to each one of these levels. As you go up, it kind of shrinks down closer and closer to boots on the ground.
Yeah, and again, this is none of this is rocket science, really. I mean, there's lots of books out there that tell you need to have a yearly plan, tell you have to connect with it every quarter. For me, it's just a matter of doing it, right? So we've assigned someone who's responsible for the schedule of our strategic planning, and she makes sure that people reminded, hey, next week we're doing, we're going to do a check-in on your priorities. Better get your report ready. Hey, do you have your report ready? And that, just having that individual who can take ownership of that process really helps everyone. Remember they have commitments they've made, and stay focused on them.
Right. And then I think when you said it's not rocket science, and it's really not, but the magic is in the doing.
Oh yeah,
and then
absolutely.
How do you structure that doing? Because that seems to be like you guys got a good system worked out about how to implement the doing, knowing, be like, we're going to go off, set a vision for the year, and it's great, and everyone's super excited, and then a quarter into it, they're all like, didn't we do something? Is there some numbers we're supposed to be looking at?
Yeah.
I don't know. Mission as normal, just keep doing the work. I'm still getting paid. I got my 40 hours. My manager has observed me do the work. Everyone's high five. I'm not getting yelled at as I'm going out the door. But here the difference is pulling it back, going, are you doing the right work? Are we still pointing in the right direction, and in a direction that serves the mission, the company, and all of our clients?
Yeah, absolutely. And I wouldn't suggest we do it perfectly. We just know we need to keep attention on it, and we have aspirations to constantly get better.
Yeah. And that as well is an important piece of like, what does that, continuous improvement, that aspiration to get better, pull back into it, going, reflecting, going, like you said earlier, sometimes those priorities need to be pruned or whatever, but making the journey of the improvement as a team and in itself, how do you pull that together to make sure that it's, in favor, but yet not a showstopper?
Right. For the priorities or for anything in the company?
Well, anything in the company.
Yeah,
Players' choice.
I'm a big proponent of retrospectives. For anyone who doesn't know what the retrospective is, that's a meeting where you get together and you talk about something that just happened. And so when we have a process that we want to retrospect, we usually schedule it. So a good example is we hire somebody. This is a key uh, process for the company, and we always want feedback on how we're doing. We always want to make sure it's getting better and better and better. So as part of the onboarding tasks, we have a task to schedule a retrospective like right away. So
Right.
we know that it's on the calendar, and it's not going to be forgotten, and everyone gets together who is involved in that hiring of that individual, and gathers feedback on how we did, and certainly their own feedback. The new hiree is important as well. The new employees, what was it to them? Did they feel they got all the information they needed? And we've made some significant improvements over the last couple of years just based on asking people how did it go. That's it's surprisingly obvious, but again, it's another one of those things that you have to do. We just, like I mentioned, just launched the book yesterday. Well, what's the first thing we scheduled? Well, it was the retrospective on how the book launch went, and we now have that scheduled. I think it's next week now, where we're going to sit down and talk about it. And we every key process has a section to learn, and when we get to the end of it, you got to figure out what went well, what didn't go well, and what should we continue doing.
I mean, I think that that's been a bit of a theme underlining everything that you've shared is like there's always that openness to asking what went well, what didn't go well, what can we improve, and like
Yeah,
being open to actually asking those three questions. That can be like a little intimidating sometimes for leaders, especially if they haven't been doing those three questions on a regular basis. Be like, what are we going to hear? And then if we hear
yeah,
something, how are we going to respond? And then how are we going to implement any of the changes that might be in there?
yeah. Well, I put it the other way. How scary would it be not to ask?
That's it.
And just let this stuff happen and not not do anything about it. So for a new onboarding process, it there's very little risk of people being upset. It's just hey, what little things can we pick apart? Occasionally, you have things that are real lessons learned that that rock people, and you got to figure things out. But for the most part, it's just little course corrections and things that can really truly make things better. Um, in general, if you've never done retrospective with your team, and to the people, anyone who's listening, I would strongly encourage you to get everyone in a room or on a call and do it together. There's some fantastic tools online. Miro is one of them. That's Miro. If you haven't heard of it, fantastic white whiteboarding tool that you can use. Very
Yeah.
collaborative, and the whole thing around retrospectives is that you give people for the first 5 or 10 minutes to write down their answers or their thoughts on what happened, and then you use that as the agenda. And that's how it levels the playing field. It saves prevents one person from taking over the conversation, one or two people taking over the conversation, and tends to get out more high quality answers and more thoughts that people wouldn't say out loud. And I guess another plug is we put together a course on virtual retrospectives, which you can take at virtiraacademy.com. But it's so important, and if you haven't done one before, um, do one with your team as a baseline. You'll get some really big things really big projects to work on. Then the next time you go through one, it's a little bit less big, I guess, and you get smaller and smaller things. But it's when you get to the tiny little course corrections where you really start to see value and improvements in productivity.
Oh, that's an interesting observation. It's like it's not necessarily the big things. The big things are once you get those settled, but you're seeing the most value out of finding the littlest things
Yeah,
and seeing how those can stack up, I imagine.
yeah, absolutely. And a lot of them are very easy to do, and a lot of times, it could be something as simple as someone being annoyed when something is being done a certain way, and that changes the quality of the life with that employee or the relationship with the company from that
Yeah,
point forward, and that has lots of impact, right? Lots of reverberates from there.
that's awesome. Thanks for diving so deep into some of those very specific things and how to bring them out.
As you can tell, I'm a process guy, so it doesn't take much.
But you definitely have these processes tuned over time, and I think maybe like what the other piece that for people that are watching is to like take away is like, does it feel like a lot of process? Yes, but get started, because the journey of this, even what you've shared in the last two, I guess now going on 3 years with the company, is like all these processes have evolved, and because they've evolved, you had to get started, and then you had to ask those three powerful questions: what's going right, what's going wrong, and what can we do better next
Yeah.
time?
And the big thing for me that I've learned over time is that it's not about writing a large deck of processes. You have to, have this Bible that people are going to use at the office to follow everything to a T. I made that mistake back in Acromedia. I still have my files for it, and you go back and like, wow, this is like, you know, long form answers on how to do everything, and no one's reading that stuff. And if they
No.
were, that they could not possibly remember everything that you put in there. It was useful for me to get my thoughts on paper, but no one else got any benefit from it. It really should be down to flowcharts and checklists and high level things that you can form habits around, and then work
Right.
on those habits. It's about the people at the end of the day, and making
Right.
sure that they understand why they're doing something in a certain way, and that they have a little bit of a a backbone to the process. So they know where they are. Just like everyone knows what the checklist that pilots use at the start of every flight. It's not because they
Right.
don't know how to fly a plane. It's because they forget things, right?
Yeah.
So
So
everyone's
there's a
human.
so there's a component of like kind of bringing the people into the process and realizing the process isn't going to run itself. It's the people that need to do it, but they also need the support of the processes and the checklists to be able to do the jobs, to be able
Yeah,
to start to understand, are they doing the right jobs in the right way, so they can answer when somebody asks them what's going well, what's not, and what can be improved.
yeah, absolutely.
I love that. Well, Shane, we're kind of getting to the top of our 40 minutes here, man.
Already?
Time has evaporated. This has been going so well. What I'd love for you is to maybe give a shout out to the company and tell us a little bit about, this is your chance to plug who it is that you are and who do you serve.
Well, we help remote teams be more productive. That's the simplest way of putting it. We have four services we offer, mostly in sales. We do a service called Sales Acceleration, where we help sales teams focus on the selling, so they can give the time back and say, taking their most valuable resources, who are salespeople, and getting them back to selling, and we take the rest off their hands. We also do channel partner enablement, which is a service that helps two large companies work better together. We represent a bit of the glue between the two companies,
Hmm.
or more. And we do remote team enablement, which follows take a little bit longer to explain, but our proprietary days of the week process, which helps remote teams perform better. And we just launched yesterday was our Virtira Academy, which aspires to provide on-demand remote training for people who may not have the experience we have with remote work.
Awesome. Where can people find more about all of this?
All that on Virtira.com. It's a bit of a tricky word, but VIRTIRA.com.
Perfect. Links are definitely down below and will be
That's
shared
probably
there
easiest. Yeah.
on. Again, Shane, thank you so much for this wild wealth of information on the power of remote working. And congratulations to you on the book launch.
Yeah,
Now,
thank
before I let you go, I ask all of my guests this question. So go with me here. We're going to jump into a time machine. We're going to blast into the future by 10 years. When we open that door, there you are. What does future you say thank you to you for doing?
Yeah, it's an easy one. Thank you for not being too afraid to learn new things. So this is a good example, but a year and a half ago, I would not be very open to getting on a show like this. But in my role as CEO, I've got to push myself to do new things, and so as long as I continue to do that, future self will be happy.
Perfect. I love that answer. Thank you so much again. And to everybody else for watching, this has been The Conversations With, episode 102. I'm your host, Gene, the Coactive Coach. And until next week, push yourself and don't be afraid to step into the unknown and learn a little bit. We'll talk to you all then.
Thank you, Gene.